Okay. We're on Memvav base, about 10 lines from the bottom. In the middle of the line, the Gemara starts Yibayluhu. The Gemara says Shaila like this. Yibayluhu. We ask the Shaila. Hespedi yikar d'chai hava, yikar d'shechvi hava. Is a hesped, the fact that a person gives a eulogy, gives a hesped for a mace, is that covered for the people who are alive, the survivors, or is it a covered for the person who died? In fact, the Gemara al nafkamina. What's nafkamina? The Gemara says two cases. The Amr Tisbdula hu Gavri. If the mace said before he died, "Don't give me a hesped," Inami or Lafukim Yarshin. If the Yarshin say, "You know what? We're not paying for a hesped for this person. We're not paying a speaker's fee." Does Bezdin say, "No, you got to pay it because it's the mace. It's the
regular person or person who's a chashuv?
Regular person. But we're going to see from the rayas the Gemara brings that the same thing would apply by a regular person or a chashuv person because the Gemara is going to bring rayas from chashuv people also. So, but the question is, what's the purpose of the hesped? Is the purpose of the hesped for the people? The Gemara seems to think that it should be one or the other.
If we say stuff is not true, the mace suffers, right? He was an unbelievable chassid.
Yeah, but that's not what the Gemara is even saying over here. That's not even the point of the Gemara. The point of the Gemara is, if it's covered for the mace, then if you want to be meichel is covered, right? If it's covered for the chayim, then they could be meichel on the covered, right? Yeah. But they can't be meichel on the mace is covered, right? So. I'm sorry, but then it's not an issue of being meichel on the mace is covered because it's not for him; it's for them. Right? So the Gemara says, what's the purpose of it? The Gemara says, Tashma, bring a raya. Pasuk says, V'yava Avram l'sped l'Sarah v'lefkaisa. Avram came to give a hesped to Sarah. V'amrat mishum yikar d'chayhu. And if it's out the covered of the people who are alive. Now the Gemara says, we know this from Rashi and the Chumash. The Avram was by that Kedah when he heard that Sarah was nefter, and he had to travel to where Sarah was to livkais l'Sarah, and she wasn't buried yet, right? So the Gemara says, Mishum Yikard Avram Mashulei l'Sarah. You're going to let Sarah not be buried out the cover of Avram so that he can give a hesped. Right? In other words, the hesped is yikar d'chayi. If it's the covet of the people who are alive, then you're letting Sarah not get buried. And we already had in the Mishnah, we saw that you're supposed to bury somebody that day. So you're not burying her because of the covet of Avram, who was the chayi, who was the live person who was left, the survivors. So that doesn't make any. Making sense. Muzayin must be that it's for the covet of the mace. And because it's the covet of the mace, it was permissible for Avraham not to bury Sarah yet till he got there and to do the hesped. Where it says, no, you have no raya, because maybe it is for the covet of the live people, but Sarah Gufa, Avraham. Sarah herself felt that, if she was alive, you'd ask her, she would say, yes, I want Avraham to have the covet. So therefore, you have no raya.
She was a big person those days, so having a thing would be very hard for people.
So having what?
She was a very big person, so
that could be. But the Gemara's Shaila though, the Gemara says, "Maisi, you have no raya from here." Tashma, bring a different raya. V'saftu lekol Yisrael v'kavru Isai. Pasuk says that it's talking about the one Yerush of Yeravam who was not a Rasha. So it says, "V'saftu Isai v'kavru Isai." The saftu lekol Yisrael, kol Yisrael v'kavru Isai. All Klal Yisrael were masked with him and they buried him. And if you say that it's the covet of the live people, were these people for covet? In other words, if you're saying it's for the live people, all the people who are alive were not tzaddikim. So what was the purpose? It says Yand, and the pasuk is that he was the one who got a proper burial because he did something good to Hashem, right? For Beis Yerabim. So what's the purpose of all the people alive around him? He was dead. So if it was Yikar D'Chayi for the people who are alive, they don't deserve. Yeah, they were all Rashab. He was the only one. He was the only, like the Shoshana ben Achoichem, right? The rose amongst the thorns we had, right? So he was the only one. So the Gemara says, it must be that's the covet of the mace, and that's why he would deserve to have a hesped because that's his covet. Gemara says no, Nichel Hula Tzadikaya. The miakribu and chi. It's good for tzaddikim that they should have covet. People should give them covet. In other words, even if it's the covet for the
people.
For the people.
Wicked people.
1 second. Yeah, so it could be for the kavod. One second. The Gemara wanted to say that it's going to be the kavod of the mace, because otherwise it's the descendants of Yeravam, the other descendants of Yeravam didn't deserve any kavod. So Gemara says no, it could be for the kavod of the chai, but it's nichul tzadikayim yakrubun. It's still kavod for the tzadikim that people should be mechabed them. So still, even though it was for the kavod of the chai, it's still good for the tzaddikim that this should happen. So it's not you have no raya that it's only for the kavod of the mace. Tashma, bring you another raya. It says lo yisapeidu lo yikaveru. Over there, it's talking about, it's a pasuk in Yeomei, I think it was, yeah, and it was saying how people would not deserve to get a hesped and a kever. The nevelis will be l'maychalei fashmayim, and for the behemoth haaretz that it would be a punishment for them. So you see from there that that must be the cover for the mason. Why? Because if it was the cover for the chayim, over there were tzaddikim alive. So if there were tzaddikim alive, then they should have had a kvura and a hesped for the people who are alive. Gemara says no. It's not good for the tzaddikim that they should be made better if because of the Rasham who died. So it's not a covet for them because the people who died were Rasham. So it's not I'm being mechabed you because I don't know you're driving a 1988 Corolla. It's not a covet, right? So the same thing. The Rasha is the person who died here. It's not a covet to be mechabed the tzaddik with the misa of the Rasha. Tashmat. The Gemara brings another right from pasuk. This is a pasuk by Tzidkiyahu. V'shalom Tamas Yoshadai in peace. In the burial places of your fathers, the kings that were before you, you'll also be buried. The my master, they'll be maspet you. So he was saying that Tzidkiyahu will get a hesped. And the Navi was saying this to Tzidkiyahu when he was alive still. And if it's also the covet of the people who are alive, that after the person died, but the remaining people who are there, that's what's the covet for. What did Tzidkiyahu care? He's dead already. The hesped is not for him.
Then it was anything here, only the cover of the mace.
So the fact that the Navi said this is going to happen, vice the chayes that the person who dies himself does care, and that's what he's telling Tzidkiyahu. When you die, you're going to get a chashuv hesped. Right? So you see it's the covet of the mace.
He cares before he dies, but once he's dead already, it doesn't make a difference. He hears what has happened, doesn't he?
He does it. If you say it's your current Pashtus, probably yes. I think there are other Gemaras like that. But besides that, I think so. But besides that,
I was never there.
Besides that, the Gemara says. The Gemara is saying that it's the covet of the mace must be that Tzidkiyahu was interested in that covet, because otherwise, why would the Navi be telling it to him? This is what the Navi was saying to him. In other words, maybe really it is the covet of the live people, but the Navi was saying, Yisrael, people should be machshav you, Klal Yisrael should be machshav you, just like you are having covet with your father. So it was really talking about a generational thing. It wasn't talking about his hesped per se. I'll bring you another ayah. The Gemara says from a pasuk, Nivza be'ein of nimas. The end of the pasuk is Vesir Yeshem Yichabed, saying a whole bunch of things that are important. Somebody who does this is chashuv in the eyes of Hashem. Nivza be'ein of nimas, something that's bazoi, that's disgusting and embarrassing in his eyes, the tzaddik's eyes. Nimas is icky. So the pasuk is saying that this is a person who's chashuv to Hashem, somebody who is moyes and something that's nivza. So what's the pasuk talking about? The Brisa says Zechizkiyahu Melech Yehuda. This is the Melech Yehuda Chizkiyahu was a tzaddik. He dragged his father's bones on a bed, like a stretcher of rope, very napa covenant. Because his father was Rasha. Well, we're going to talk about that. Let's talk about that first. Rashi really bavarns. Rashi says, don't worry about kibbut avim in this case, because the pasuk says nasi ba'amcha leisar, and it says amcha isa ma'isa amcha. So he had no chiyuv of covet to him of the makom kiddush Hashem. Yeah, but the question of the Gemara is, it says that the Chizkiyahu was Gira Mal Atzmasi Aviv Al Mita Shachaval, he was Mefazeh him, and must be that the hesped is the covet of the mace, because if it's the covet of the chai, right, then he was a tzaddik. So why should he get embarrassed because of his father? The Gemara says if it's not the covet of the live people, who might time it? Why did he do this? Why did he do this? It's not the covet to the people who are alive. So forget his father. Gemara says no. Really, it could be that it is also the covet of the live people, but he still did it anyway. So this father should have a kapara. So that's why he did it. Because of the covenant of the kapara of his father, you're going to go and be mevaza ol Klal Yisrael. Because again, we're saying now in this tzad that the hesped is for the covenant of people who are alive. Yeah, but by being mevaza his gir atzmes aviv, then you're basically being mevaza all the live people, right? So you're going to go be mevaza the whole Klal Yisrael. And the Gemara says Yisrael gufayim nichalahu de michli yikrayu legabei. The Yidden themselves are happy with this, that they're moichel, they're covered legabe his father, so that he can get a kapara. Tashma, bring you another ayah. Amar lahen altas viduni be'ayaris. Excuse me, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he said to his Yarshim before he died, don't be masped me in the little cities. Wait till you get to the big cities, and when you get to the big cities, then everyone will gather together. There'll be a lot of people, and then be masped me. And if it's also the covet of the people who are alive, what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi care? Because it must be that it was the covet of the mason. Therefore, he felt there should be more people there. The Gemara says no. Maybe it's really Yikar Dechai. It's so people are alive. Kasavar Rabbi Yehuda Nasi thought this Yaikru Bey Yisrael Tvei. There should be more covet for the people who are alive, for all Klal Yisrael who are there. With my kfura, my hesped should be more covet for them. That there are more people there.
People in the cities came there. That's also.
Right. People from the small cities came there, so there's bigger crowds. That's why he said, don't do it in the little places, only do it in the big places, and then everyone will gather. Tashma. The Gemara says, I'll bring another ayah. Hilinu. This is our Mishnah. If they let the person of regular mace stay overnight, in other words, without being buried, for his own honor, for example, to bring him an aron or bring him tachrichin, if you're not over on the isser of being mal in the mace, leaving the mace overnight. My love, mace. So this means and you see that the hesped, all the things that you're doing after the misa, is for the the cover of the mace. Mar says, we're talking about you're bringing the Aron and Tachrichin so that the people who are alive shouldn't be embarrassed, that they should have a proper funeral for the person who's close to them was niftar. Because of the covet of the person who's alive, you're going to let the person who is dead stay overnight. That doesn't make any sense. It says yes. When the Torah says, and we learn this whole halacha of leisalin, of don't leave a mace overnight, it says, what? We learn it from the guy who's hanging, but the Gemara before said that we learn from the hanging guy, and we learn that talking about all mace. Right? So when does the Gemara learn that from? In the case of leisalin levasle, it's dumi the talui this be bizayin. It's doime to a person who's talui where there's for sure bizayin. Exactly.
That means hanging people know, but if it's in a walk somewhere, for people to come, they have to wait. It's exactly what the Gemara is saying over here. Since there's no bizayin and you're waiting for tachrichin, even if it's out the covet of the live people, it's still okay. At least on this side in the Gemara. Right? The Gemara's not to be impatient over here. Tashma, the Gemara brings another ayah. If they let the person stay overnight, the body stay overnight for his covet, for example, to let people know, to gather people to come to the hesped, to the levaya, which was very common today, by the way. If a person is nifter before the night, a lot of times they're going to push off the levaya till the next day so that people can gather. Certainly the relatives, but even not the relatives.
But it's still not.
It's still very makbid, right? It's true. But over here we do it. To bring
better than him. They burn right away over here, not?
I don't know. I guess the minig.
Very
It's only the
little, 2
minig.
hours.
What?
Yeah.
Right away at night, even at night also.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are we not? Why?
I don't know. Probably the minig. But lahavi lemekaynin is to bring mekaynis. Mekaynis are professional mourners, wailers, people to get everyone, the crowd into a sad mood. Yeah. Lahavi le'aron of tachrichin, to bring an aron or tachrichin. Any ever love. You're not over on the avera of being malin. Because the person who's doing this is for the covenant of the mace. So you see mefurish in this brisa that the hespedim and all the related things are the yukar the shechvit for the covenant of the mace. What it means is, if you do in the covenant of the chai, there's no bezayin of the mace, like we said before, and therefore it's not an isser. So you still have no raya. Tashma, bring another raya. From Nasan Aimer Sim Yafal Meish and Efron Mimenu Lachar Misa. It's a good siman for a mace who gets a punishment after Misa. What's the Gemara talking? What's the Brisa talking about? If, for example, Meishalei Nispad, a dead person who didn't get a proper hesped, Nikvar he didn't get buried, Aishachayigar Rasai, or an animal dragged his corpse, Aishayigasham Mazalfal Mitasai, or when they're burying him, that's raining on his mita, on the stretcher they're taking man on. Zeo Simnya for the mace. This is a good simon for the mace.
In fact, he did it to his father. You remember before, he did it to his father on ropes and everything. He's doing it to her also.
So
he's doing it by himself.
So it's a good kasha you're asking. Look in the Bach, Eis Aleph. You see the Bach, Eis Aleph? Gemara the Tavle Kapara Level, Nichta B'tzidei, V'kasha. He's going on the Gemara before with Chizkiyahu. It's shver. Havari B'samach Havi Tashma Med Rab Nassan. Later on, from this Tashma of Rab Nassan, which is this Gemara that we just learned, Muvur, we learned, Dafkim Hu Mishim Yikar Deshikvi. It's only because of the covet of the dead people. Yikol Meis is Bizayin. Harei Ule Kapara. If the mace has a Bizayin, he has some Kapara. Avli Mishim Yikar Dechayihu. But if it's the covet of the live people, ain't like Kapara the mace cloud. The mace doesn't have a kapara, because if it's got the cover of the live people, then whatever happens to the mace after his misa is not material. So if that's the case, Babach is asking, then what's, if we're going on the tzad that it's covered of the chai, what's the Gemara talking about? Giratz Masaviv. So your question is a very good question, and the Babach doesn't say the answer. But anyway, back to our Gemara. So Rav Nassan says that all these things, if these things bad things happen after the misa, before the kvura, for example, he's not nikvar or he's not nispad, then it's a kapara for him. It's a good simon. What?
Someone get buried in the rain is really a bad thing.
That's what it says. Sham mazal from mitasei. So Shema Mina, Yikar Deshechvi Hu Shema Mina. So the Gemara says, you see from this Rav Nassan that the whole point of Hesped is out the cover of the mace, and the Gemara says that's the halacha, and all our nafkamina, all the way at the beginning that we said, if a mace said, don't give me a Hesped, then you listen to him, and that's taka what we do. That's the meaning of if a mace said, don't be masped me, derech klal, we were not masped him. I think by a gadol you don't listen to him, but by a regular person, I think that's the halacha.
Not be masped, but I want to say
that's that they do a chalma. Yeah, Rosh Chodesh, yeah. Okay, the Gemara says, the Mishnah said, "Vayter lo yehu yikayvin chulu." The Mishnah said that they wouldn't bury the person who was killed by Bezdin in the regular Beis HaKvaros where his whole family was buried. But Bezdin had two special Beis HaKvaros, one for people who got skila and shreifa, and one for people who got hereg v'chenek. Why do you not bury this person who got killed next to everyone else? The Gemara says, because you don't bury a Russia near a tzaddik. Rubach Rachnina said, how do you know you don't bury a Russian near a tzaddik? Shnemer it says, they were burying a person, and they saw the army, and they threw the person. This person was a Navi Sheker, he was a bad person, in the grave of Elisha, who was dead already. And the body went. And this dead corpse touched the bones of Elisha because it was thrown into the same kever. And he became alive. He was revived.
Elisha, the
guy, not Elisha.
Russian.
Yeah, and he got alive. And he walked out. So you see
that it must be, it's not a covet for a tzaddik to be buried next to a rasha. So this was a rasha, and it wouldn't have been covered to Elisha that he should have a kever, or he should have a rasha buried next to him, and therefore Hashem made chiyas amesim to this rasha so that he should walk out and not be a bezayin to Elisha. So you see that you don't bury a rasha near a tzaddik. Amrli Rav Papa, Rav Papa said, there's a girsa on the side and some of the Gemara that Rav Papa said to Abaya, Yomei, maybe that's not the reason why he had to case Mesim over here. It was to be Mekayim a different pasuk. Dihina Pishnayim Baruchacha Elai. Before Eliyahu was nifter, Elisha asked him for a bracha that he should have double what Eliyahu had, and Eliyahu Hanavi was Mechayim Mesim one mace, and Elisha therefore had a what do you call it? A bracha to Mechayim Mesim two mason. One mace was the kid of the Isha Hashunamis, it's Lenin and Aftaira, and this was the second mace. This guy. So even though he was nifter already, this was the second mace he was Mechaya, and therefore he had to do it. So it had nothing to do with the fact that a Rasha shouldn't be buried next to a tzaddik. It was only else to have Vihina Pishnayim Baruchacha Elai. Amar Lei, so Abai said to Papa, if so, that doesn't stem with what we learned in a brisa. The brisa says that the guy Vayakam al Raglav, he got up on his feet and walked away. But the brisa says he got up and walked away, but he never got to his house. In other words, after he got out of the kever, it wasn't a bezayin to Elisha, he dropped dead again. Right? That's not a kiyum of Eliyahu Hanavi.
Who buried him?
That I don't know. But that's not a kiyum of Eliyahu Hanavi's bracha. That's not considered being Mechayim Mesim, right? Ella v'hina pishnayim hechim mishkach esla. So what is the pishnayim? The achye hechim mishkach esla dachye. Where do you see that he used Mechayim Mesim again? Rabbi Yechanan said Shrupa tzaras naman shishkul kames. He was marapa. He healed the tzaras of naman, like we say in the Yiratzain by Berchos Chayanim. That he got the Naaman Saras was healed by Elisha, and Mitzvah is Shakul Kames. Mitzvah is considered the equivalent of a dead person. She Shkula Kames. Mitzvah is considered equivalent to that person, and we know this Tiksiv Al Nati Kames. When Miriam got Saras, the tefillah that Moshe Rabbeinu said was Al Nati Kames B'Tzeisim Merachimim V'Yach L'Chatzi B'Sari. She shouldn't be considered like a mace. So you see that a Mitzvah is considered like a mace, and Elisha healed Naaman's Saras. It was like he did Chiyas Mesim. Now, if that's the case, then the chiyas of the Rasha who fell into the Navi Sheker, who fell into Elisha's kever, was not because of the bracha of Eliyahu.
He was really alive.
No, Elisha was nifter.
No, I'm saying the Rasha fell in.
He fell in. He got Chiyas Mesim. He walked out, and he dropped out again. Right. So you do have a raya. The reason why you had Chiyas Mesim over there was what the Rebbeinu said. It's not bakavedik for a tzaddik to have a Rasha buried next to him. And now the Gemara continues. The Gemara is explaining the Mishnah, because the Mishnah said that you don't bury him with his family, and then the Mishnah said they had two basic verses, one for the Skila and Shreifa people, one for the Harag and Chenek people. And the Gemara continues, just like you don't bury a Rasha next to that tzaddik, same principle, you don't bury a big Rasha next to a little Rasha. And if someone who gets Skila or Shreifa is a big Rasha, and someone gets Harag or Chenek, which are smaller ancient, so you don't bury them together with each other.
Interesting. Kamais is both Rishonim.
Yeah. And then Gemara has
how do you weigh the scale? You know?
And then Gemara has another question also. Viliska and Arba Kvaris. Why don't we have four kvaras? One for the skila and streifa. Skila is more chamer than streifa. So I have one for the skila people, one for the streifa people, one for the Arab people, one for the chenek people. What's going on? Why two?
Once they have their skila, isn't that a kapara for them?
We're going to talk about that. Today's daf. Gemara says shnei kvaras gemara gmirila. When the halach l'mashimesina, we have a kabbalah ishmi piyish that you have on the bezdin will only have two kvaras. One for the skila, the streifa people, one for the Arab chenek people. Amr Ula Amr Rav Yechanan. Ula says in the name of Rav Yechanan, Achal Chelev. Let's say it seems we're going to come back to kaparas over here, but that's why we're going to this Gemara. It's going to seem like a tangent for a few minutes. Amr Ula Amr Rav Yechanan. Ula said in the name of Rav Yechanan, Achal Chelev v'hifresh karban v'emer dasai. Somebody ate Chelev, and by mistake he has to bring a chatas. He was mafresh a carbon to be a chatas, and then he went off the derech. Neimer dasai. He went off the derech. The chazer by, but now he did tshuva. Came back. Baruch Hashem. Since the carbon was already pushed away, if someone is a mummer, it's a gzeres hakasav. A mummer cannot bring a carbon. Yeah. So while he's a mummer. So since during the time he was a mummer, he wasn't able to bring a carbon, so it's nidcha, that carbon was nidcha, even though now he did tshuva, that carbon is possible already, you can't quote unquote revive that carbon. He's going to go to Gan Eden. I'm not saying that, but the carbon is ready nidcha. Yeah. Itmer Nam, we learned also, he still has to bring a carbon, but not this carbon, not this shapslo. Probably it's like the halacha. Probably like the halachas of chata shemesa baleha, a year after she's died.
Are you starving, whatever?
Yeah, like grace.
It gets a moment. Yeah. Imranami, we learned also. Amar Yirmi, Amar Bavo, Amar Yechon, Amar Yirmi said Nimar Bavo, Nimar Yechon. Achel chaylev. Same case. Somebody who ate a similar case. Excuse me. Someone who ate chaylev, the hifresh carbon, and then he was mafresh carbon. He had to bring a carbon chatas, nishtata, and then he became mentally ill. He's a shaita now. A shaita cannot bring carbon because a carbon, like carbon, it says they're tzaynai. It has to be for a person's will, and a person who's a shaita does not consider a bardas. He doesn't have will. The chazim nishtapa, but then he got better again. Same halacha. Since it got pushed away, he couldn't bring the carbon while he was a shaita, so this carbon is no good anymore. Now, in fact, the Gemara, why do you have to have both cases? It's the case of the person who went off the derech and the case of the person who became a shaita. Utzricha, you need both cases. If you said the case of only the case of the person who went off the derech, I would say the reason why the carbon is no good is because he, by choice, went and made himself that this carbon is no good. But the shaita, he got sick, it wasn't his fault. So maybe it's like a person who sleeps. When a person sleeps, does he have das? No. He doesn't have das. He's sleeping, right? But he wakes up, the carbon's still good. You don't say that a person has to be mafresh his chatas and then can't go to sleep till he brings it. No, that's a normal thing. So maybe by the shaita also, it's like a normal thing. He became a shaita and then became better. Now we can bring it again. So he's kamashmol and then know that it's no good. It's nidcha. And if it said the case of the shaita only, I would say that the reason why the shaita is the carbon is nidcha is because he cannot go and make it better. He's a shaita, he can't heal himself. But the case of the mummer, the biyadei lachzer, he can fix the situation. It's in his hands the whole time. He can say, you know what, I'm doing tshuva, I'm becoming from again. Right? So so maybe it's not considered nidcha. So where it says tzricha, that's why you need both cases. Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, Afan anami tanina, hoyiba kachim esbeachim, musu kachim edekabayis yiftu. Now we're going to get back into kapara. We're going to start talking about Sanhedrin stuff again. The halacha is that by irani dachas, if it had kachim in it, what happens to the kachim? So the kachim doesn't get burned with the rest of the stuff. Why? Because it's not considered belonging to the city, because it belongs to the Rebbeinu Shalom. However, a carbon that belonged to Eved Avodah Zarah, just like we said by the mummer, nidcha pashtas. So the Gemara says, kachim. If it had kachim and there was kachim izbeach, somebody had in the Yeridachas had separated. This should be a shlamim, this should be an oila, this should be a chatas, whatever it is. Yamusu, they'll die. They should die. Kachim bedekabayis, you have to. But kachim bedekabayis, they get redeemed. Kachim bedekabayis means money. He said, I mean, magdish this refrigerator to bedekabayis, and now the refrigerator belongs to the gizber or to the Rebbeinu Shalom, really. But the gizber can go and sell it and take the money and put it towards the balance sheet of the Beis Hamikdash. But we asked, Amaya Musu, in the case of Kachim Mizbeach, why should they die? And this is what you were saying, Yitzi, Kim the Ektol, Havilu Kapara, Viliskula Gvaya. Since these people, the Iranadach's people got killed, they had a Kapara, so now the Karbanis should be okay, and let's bring the Karbanis, the Shlamim, you can't bring a Chata Shemisbala, but a Shlamim and Oila you could bring. Must be, Lam Mishim Damrina and Hoil V'nitchu Yitchu, must be, because we say, once it got pushed away for a little, it's pushed away. Just like we said before. That's why we wrote the Gemara before. We're circling back to say this. You see from the case of Yerani Dachas that Hov Yitchu Yitchu because they had a kapara. Amalei Abaya, even though they had a kapara. Amalei Abaya, no. Nisavas Mechmat, you have like kapara? He says no. There's no kapara. If you wanted to bring a raya for Hoil V'yitchu Yitchu, you can't bring a raya that Hoil V'yitchu Yitchu. Why? Because he was Meis Mitech Rishai. These Irani Dachnas people, they got killed because they were Risham. They didn't do tshuva necessarily. So maybe Meis Mitech Rishai, like kapara. Somebody who dies from his rishus doesn't have a kapara. Now, being a raya, Abaye says the Tani Rab Shmaya learned in a braysa. Yachla fil pirsha avaisim derech letzibur yitma. Kamalaymer ba'amav. The akayin hedyet is allowed to become tamei to his 7 kravim who are nifter. So the Gemara says maybe you would think that even if, let's say, a kohen's father went off the derech, maybe the kohen can become tamei to him. The Gemara says Kamalaymer ba'amav. It says
still Yid, right?
He's still a Yid, but the Kohen can't be here. Lenefesh le'itama ba'amav. He can't become nefesh tamita nefesh ba'amav. And the reason why, except for his 7 kravim. But the Gemara is saying only ba'amav. If the 7 kravim are ba'amav, but if the 7 kravim are not ba'amav because he went off the derech, he can't do it. Now, then ba'isa ma'isamav, he has to do the ma'isam of a Yid. So now, what do you see from here? You see that even though his father died, so l'chayri should have a kapara. Still, the kohen can't become tamei to him. I had a kapara because the father died. No, you see, even when the father died, if he died mitayich rishai, he's still not considered having a kapara. So you have no, so you don't know that a person who dies has a kapara. Amalei Rava, so Rava said Tabai Mika Madamis Nerag Mutech Rishai Lemesi Mutech Rishai. You're making an afkamina over here. You're comparing apples and oranges. The one case is a person was killed by Bezdin because of his rishus. They're nidaches. The other case is somebody died natural death while he's being a rasha. Meis Mutech Rishai, someone who died naturally, even though while he was a rasha. Given the chior kamayis, since he died regularly, they have like kapara. That's not a kapara. But Nerag Mutech Rishai, when Bezdin killed someone as an einish for his rishus, given lav kirchemaya, since he didn't have a normal misa, have like kapara. That is a kapara. Teida, I'll bring you right. Except the pasuk says, the pasuk will tell him, Mizmar la'asaf, Elikim, Hashem, bo goyim benach lasecha. Nations came into your land. Timoy sechel kachecha. The Goymer, they were matama the Kabeis HaMikdash, and then it says the Gemara skips a little. Nasnus nivlas avadecha. They put the corpses of your servants ma'achaloifa shemayim, to be food for the birds of the sky. But b'sar chasidecha, the flesh of your chasidim, l'chaysi aretz, the animals of the ground will eat. In other words, they didn't get buried. Now, my avodecha, my chasidecha. The pasuk says 2 things: nivlas avodecha and besar chasidecha. What's avodecha? What's chasidecha? Lav chasidecha, chasidecha mamish. Chasidecha means mashma that it should be your people who are tzaddikim. They're chasidim. They do what the Rebbeinu wants. Avodecha, when it says avodecha, could be hanach to mechayvi dina to meikara. They were mechayiv to have a din before. And the kivan de ektel, and once they got killed, kari lahu avadecha. The pasuk calls them avadecha. In other words, they're considered the servants of Hashem because they got a kapara when they got killed. And he's saying, so you see from here, when somebody gets killed, because these people, they were killed by the goyim, right? That's considered the kapara. That's why they're called avadecha. Amalei Abaye said to Rava, no, Mika Madamis, you're being Madama, Haruge Malchus, Haruge Bezdin. The pasuk in Tehillim is talking about when the Haruge Malchus, the Goyim killed the Yidden. The Haruge Bezdin are different. Haruge Malchus, Kivin the Shloi Bedin Kamiktli, Havilu Kapara. Haruge Malchus had no right to kill those Yidden. Right? The Malchus, the Goyim didn't have the right to kill them. So therefore, then the Shloi didn't come you have a kapara, they get a kapara. Haruge Bezdin, but the Haruge Bezdin, they didn't have Era. Keep them didn't come Bezdin was properly killed them. Lo have a kapara, they shouldn't get a kapara. Hey, I'll bring you a raya. The time we learned in the Mishnah, Lo you koivin oisav akiras avaisav. It says in our Mishnah that after he was killed, they wouldn't bury the person. They would hang him, and then they wouldn't bury him in burial place of his father.
Family plot. Yeah.
Family plot. And if you hold that once a person got killed, he has a kapara when Besdin killed him, let them bury him in the family plot. Mara says, no, you have no right, because Misa ukvura binan. You need the Misa and the Kvura. That's going to be the kapara. So therefore, since you didn't have the Misa and the Kvura yet, you can't do the Kvura in the place. You have to do the Kvura elsewhere because only the Kvura makes the kapara.
Right. So
right?
Never embarrassed.
Well, we said afterwards, we're going to talk, we said in the Mishnah that eventually they would transfer him afterwards. And we're going to talk, the Gemara is going to break it down in a few minutes. Rav Bar Ava asked the Kasha, the Mishnah continues, our Mishnah continues, that the family of the person who was killed by Bezdin wouldn't sit Shiva, but they would be Einanin. Shein Aninas el B'lev, because Aninas is only in the heart. In other words, you don't do a Velas, but you only do an Aninas. Aninas, I think Midrash is only one day. I'm assuming that's what it means, but I don't think they say Kaddish, no. Mara says, Rashi brought down on the Mishnah, this is the top of the base, the top line. They wouldn't be masabel on them. So the bizayin should be a kapara for the person who got killed by Bezdin. And they would just do aninas. The ain't covered laharag. The aninas is not a covered for the person who got killed. So he's not getting a kapara because they do aninas. Because aninas is only in the lane, right? Aninas is not overt avelis, not saying a bracha, things like that. That shows that he's not being misameach, but it's all in the heart. But it's not avelis like where a person sits down on the floor.
You know, so I'll get mechila by my funeral.
He's also going to get killed.
I know that I got killed, but I'll have a kapara.
Okay. First of all, there's a word that says, where it says that someone says, where it says, somebody who says that the Rebbeinu Shalom is a vatran, the Rebbeinu Shalom says that I'm going to vatra you, right? But I don't think that that applies over here, because over here, yes, a person could say I'm going to do an aver and I'll get a kapara, but he's also going to get killed. It's not really a rational basis to be Mechal Shabbos or something, right? Anyway, so the Gemara says, and if you're saying that no, the Misa alone is not a kapara, but the Misa and the Kvura is a kapara, then at the point, since he got buried already, let the Yarshin be Ma'avel, because the guy already got a kapara. So they should be able to do Sicheva, say Kaddish and everything. And for the Gemara, B'ina Nami Yikol Basar. No, you need more. You need to have that the flesh should rot away, should decompose. They can nami, and I'll bring you right. The Tani, the Gemara, the Mishnah said, our Mishnah, the Sakala Basar, once he's completely decomposed, Malaktanas at Samas, you take the person who got killed by Bezdin's bones, you gather them, and then you put them back in the kever of his family, the family plot. Shmamina, you see that's what the kapara is. And since the equal, the decomposition didn't happen yet, that's why you still don't sit shiva, because the guy still needs to get a kapara.
When there's a shiva,
they don't sit shiva. Yeah. Rashi Amar, Avelus me'emasai kamaschelas. Rashi wants to say in different tarets. No, he says, really, even the kvura is already a kapara. But when does Avela start? Mistimas Hagoyla. The Avela starts when they cover over the Aron and start the burial in the Beis Olam. Kapara me'imasai ka'avya. But when does the kapara happen? Because tzara the kivra perta. When the dead person, the mace, has a tzara of the kivra, the decomposition starts. So it's true you don't need to have the entire decomposition, but since at the time that the burial happened and the chiyuv of avelos happened, there still wasn't the complete kapara. Therefore, the whole shiva doesn't happen. The whole avelos doesn't happen. Helka chayil ve'idchu yidchu. Since the shiva got pushed away, it stays pushed away. Then why do you have to wait till the basar is all decomposed to bury the bones in the family plot? And where it says, it's not possible. It's not really very easy to move a body that's in the middle of the process of decomposition. So you wait till the decomposition finishes, and then you can move the bones. Kivrei de Rav, funny story the Gemara says. Kivrei de Rav, the kever of Rav, after he was nifter, havushakli mine, people would take from it afra, dirt, dust, leishta bas yema, for a fever that happened in that day. That would be a medicine, a refuel for it. Asu Amrulay L'Shmuel, they came and said to Shmuel, and they were complaining, it's not covered to Rav. Amrulu, he told them, Yas Abdin, they're doing okay, Karka Olamhu, because this is part of Karka Olam, the dirt near the kever is not part of the kever itself. The Karka Olam in Aseris, and Karka Olam is not, doesn't become Aser. Diksiv, Vayishlach Esafara al kever b'nei ha'am. Pasuk says that when they destroyed the Asherah from the in Melachim from the Beis Hamikdash, they burnt it in Nachal Kidron and they ground it into dust, and then they threw the afar al kever b'nei Adam. They threw the afar by the basic viruses. Makish kever b'nei Adam lavodas kachavim, and it's mak. So you see, it's connecting the kever to avodas kachavim, and we say ma'avodas kachavim mechuber lemitzra. The halacha is that avodas kachavim is not usher if it's mechuber lekarka. The ksiv of the pasuk says, "Asher atam yarshim ma'isam esaleihem alaharim haramim." It says, the pasuk says that the Yidden should go with when the Yidden come into Eretz Yisrael, they should destroy all the places of avodas zara, and they're gods alaharim haramim on the tall mountains. Alaharim Elohim. On the mountains is where their avodas zara, their gods are. V'loi haharim Elohim. But the harim, the mountains themselves, can't be their gods. In other words, even if they worship a mountain, if it's mechuber lekarka, it's not considered aser b'ana. Hachanami, so over here also, the dirt on top of Rav's kever is mechuber lekarka, and therefore it didn't become aser. In fact, the Gemara, Meisvei, Asyu Kasha, Chaitzim Kever La'aviv, Halach.
It didn't become aser with mutter.
When they took the dirt for their remedy,
but it healed, healing.
Yeah.
Vice versa.
Either it was a
had contact with the mace.
It doesn't say that it healed them. Either it worked and it was the schus of Rav, or it didn't work, but they did it anyway as a folk remedy. They thought it would work. The Gemara doesn't say either way whether or not it worked. Right? But if it was working on Tzchus of Rav, it wasn't necessarily the context of the mace, it was still in the kever. We have a halacha that a kever is teifus 4 amos around it. Right? We had the Gemara before that you bury the even that they killed the person who's niskal, the even and the eitz, and you bury that together, or the sayif, if you got hereg, you buried it next to him. Gemara says we have a brayso that says you don't bury it with him, and one brayso says you do bury it with him. Right? So the Gemara says, Gemara says that you buried it in tfisasai. Next to him, it's still considered part of the kever. So you see, it doesn't have to mamish be the kever to be considered part of the kever. Okay. In fact, the Gemara, Meisvei, Asyu Kasha, this is what Shmuel said to be matter the people who are taking the dirt from Rav's kever. Meisvei, where it says, Asyu Kasha, Chaitziv kever la'avu v'halach b'kavra b'makam achar, reza la'ikav b'yalavis. Somebody who digs a grave for his father, and then ended up, the father got buried somewhere else. Then, hareza la'ikav b'yalavis. You can't use this.
What does that mean? You bought him a kever and then you buried it somewhere else?
They brought him, started burying him over here, and then I don't know what happened. It got dark, and somewhere else. He was going to bury him over here. Repaired it. And then, for whatever reason, he got buried somewhere else. There was a thunderstorm. They found the first open kever. They plunked him in. So then, the different halachas about moving him. We're actually going to touch upon some of those in a minute. But the point is this kever aser or not? And the Gemara says, covered by lamis. You can't bury in it. You can't do anything with it. What?
The one that wasn't buried in. When they should have buried in, you can't do anything.
Yeah. In other words, it became a kever and it's aser ba'ana, right? So it's mechuber lekarka. So what's the problem? Shmuel said that any kever, right? It's a hole in the ground, right? So why is it aser ba'ana? Gemara says, it's talking about a kever that's above ground, and therefore it's not considered mechuber lekarka. And just like the zara in such a situation will be aser ba'ana, so too in a kever in such a situation is aser ba'ana. Tashma, the Gemara says, bring you another way. Kever chadash muter ba'ana. If you have a new kever, that means that they didn't dig it for a particular mace. In the case before, he dug it for a particular mace, he dug it for his father. But here we're talking about he didn't dig it for a particular mace. It just, he was in the cemetery, he's the cemetery guy, he says, look, I got some extra time, I'll dig some graves, so when somebody dies, I'll be ready. Right? So kever chadash mutter ba'ana. It's mutter ba'ana. Hittel by nafal, but if you put into it even a nafal, an embryo, a fetus that was niftar, it's not a full mace, asr ba'ana. The whole thing becomes asr ba'ana. So for the Gemara, so you see Shmuel is not right because it's a kever is still asr ba'ana. But it says hachnami b'kever binyan. It's also talking about an above ground kever. Tashma, I'll bring you right. Nimsa to emer shalosh kever same. Gemara says it comes out that you have three different types of karim. Three types of cars. This is a Bryson Oilis. What are they? Kever HaNimtza, Kever HaYedua, Kever HaMazak Rab. These are the three types. One is Kever HaNimtza, one is Kever HaYedua, one is Kever HaMazak Rab. Now the Bryson explains. Kever HaNimtza, a kever that was found. This is a kever HaNimtza means that the guy found it in his field. He knows he gave no one permission to bury anyone there. He knows it's not around. It's not there for 400 years. He knows that it was fresh, and he gave no permission. So really, the mace has no business being here. Mutter l'fanaisai. It's mutter for the owner of the field to move this mace somewhere else, which normally you're not allowed to do. And pineu, and if you moved him, kind of tahar. The place is tahar.
Goes back to being tahar.
Right? Usually a kever, even if you move the person, it's a gzera midrabanan that the kever stays tamei.
Interesting halacha, you take away tamei just because of that?
It's a gzera. It's a
I
gzera.
understand, but it doesn't make sense if you think about it. It's already tamei because of the technical problem.
No, it's not already tamei.
I'm saying it
You
would
took
be
the body away. The problem is the body.
Right, but say regular case, guy buried him there, let's say, right? It's tamei.
Yeah.
He said no permission, he had to move it out, so it becomes ois tamei.
So because the gzera midrabanan doesn't apply once it was taken out. Hideo b'kamitar mutter b'ana, and it's mutter b'hana.
Kohen can walk there.
A kohen can walk there, and the guy can plow there, plant there, whatever he wants in that place. Kever HaYedua. Let's say you have a kever that was known. In other words, that the person buried him there with the consent of whoever owned the karka. Asr l'fanaisi. You're not allowed to move the mace. Pineu. If you did move the mace, mekayme tar, the place is mekayme tamei. Excuse me, the place is tamei. Gzera d'Rabbanan, because they did not want you going and moving a kever. You're not supposed to move a kever. But asr ba'ana, and so that's a disincentive to do it. Asr ba'ana, it's asr ba'ana because it's a kever. Third type is kever hamazik asarabim, a kever that's damaging the rabbin. For example, it's someone who buried somebody else in the middle of the street. Now everybody who passes over is going to become tamei. Yeah. Mutter l'fanai, so you let him move it. Pinei become tar, and if you move the base, his place is tahar. The asr ba'ana, and it's asr ba'ana. Why is it asr ba'ana? Because it's Rashi says because it's an isser daraisa, the place where the kever is, and that doesn't go away. So the Gemara says, Shmuel said that it's okay. We're makish tavay d'zara. Gemara says, Achmem b'kever binyan. It's also a kever binyan. It's above ground. It's not mechuber l'karka. Let's say you find the first case we had, the guy found the mason buried in his property. Maybe the reason why the mason was buried was somebody was walking along, he sees a random corpse on the road. The halach is you bury him right then and there. So maybe that was the story. So you can't move him. The mace mitzvah is kind of his place. Where it says shani mace mitzvah. The kala is like there's a rumors go around. People hear about it. The news travels when there's a mace mitzvah, so he would have heard about it. And we're talking about a case where he didn't. Itmar, we learned. Ha'erig beged the mace. Somebody who weaves a beged for a mace, but didn't dress the mace in it yet. So does it become asr ba'ana? Abaya Amar Asr, Hazmana Milsi. Abaya says it's Asr because Hazmana, designating something for a specific purpose, counts. It's a thing. Rav Amar Mutter. Rav says it's Mutter Bana because Hazmana Lav Milsi. Until you actually put this the baguette onto the mace, the tafrichim on the mace, it's still going to be Mutter because Hazmana Lav Milsi. My time with Abaya, Gamar Sham Egla Rufa. Abaya's reason is he learned some pasuk from Egla Rufa. Pasuk says by mace, by kever, but Thomas Sham Miriam Matikaver Sham. Miriam died there and was buried there. And by Egla Rufa it says. You should chop off the neck over there of the egla from the nachal. So he learns that sham from egla rufa. Magla rufa basmana mitzvah. The halach is that egla rufa comes aser as soon as it goes down to the nachal. It becomes aser even before they chop its neck off and everything. Hainami basmana mitzvah. So this thing also, if you make something for a mace, it becomes aser with just hazmana. Rava Gamar Sham Sham Yavetz Chavim. Rava uses the same Sham, but the pasuk he uses from Miriam is Atz Kever, and then from Avetz he learns from Avetz Chavim. The pasuk says, "Abei ta'abdanas kol hamakayim asher avdu sham hagayim." The places where the people did the avodah zarah. Just like Avodah Chavim doesn't become asur with Hazmana, so here also Hazmana itself does not make the thing asur bana for a kever. Okay, let's stop here.
Safe trip.